Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Windows Autopilot deployment services. This webinar today will focus on what Windows Autopilot can do for you, the partner, and your customers, drilling into how it works, the services and packages that Ingram can offer to support the deployment, configuration, and transit, and what is coming to the future. My name is Peter Graham, and I'm a Partner Development Manager for the Modern Workplace here at Ingram Microcloud. I'm also joined today by my colleague Brian Windsor, a Senior Business Manager as well. Today's agenda will focus on these 7 key areas. So we'll talk first about the challenges with device deployment, what it is, the benefits, a bit of a how-to guide of how to set it up, the requirements for licensing. So from a Modern Workplace perspective, what are the minimum requirements? The packages, which Brian will run you through, of what Ingram can do, and some of the services. So let's get started. So this first slide really resonates for me, and I've probably used it on a couple of webinars in the past if you've joined them. But this really tells a great story because it shows you where some customers are very comfortable with the way things are. They've done things because they've always done them. And highlighting the fact that if they're still using Windows 7 or they're paying for Windows 7 security updates into the second year now, if they're still using on-premise software and things like that, and again if they've got devices that are well past their sell-by date, of course they've no strategy for replacing a device or refreshing their devices across their estate. Employees may be even using their personal devices, as you can see. And they only buy PCs whenever something happens or something goes wrong. And this is all too common because with the mounting of costs and stuff like that and infrastructure that people have to invest in, sometimes an organization, no matter how big or how small they are, really needs to understand why they should think ahead and plan for the future of their technology requirements. And Windows Autopilot, which you'll see in the next few slides, will eliminate all of that confusion. It will reduce the costs. It will hopefully plan for a much more trouble-free deployment scenario for them. So let's take a look at what happens right now. Probably what's happening in your offices right now for your engineers and your hardware teams. Your customer requires a device. You get that device shipped by Ingram Micro to your office. You have a custom image of what that customer requires on that device. You gather all the information. You put it onto the machine. You overwrite everything. You package that machine all the way back up again and post it out to your customer, who then posts it to their end user if they're working from home. This is obviously a lot of expense, a lot of time, not to mention the postage costs from yourself to the customer, and then the customer deploying it out to their employee in some cases. And then, of course, the amount of time that it takes. If a customer turns around and says, I need 100 devices and I need them within a couple of weeks or something, that can be a very tight turnaround. And all that additional time of those machines sitting and the custom image being deployed across multiple devices can take up a lot of your employees' time. Of course, yeah, you'll make some additional margin and things like that on the services and the deployment that you may charge for. But sometimes this option is much too expensive for a customer. And again, maybe some of the reasons why they may not consider a hardware refresh because of the added costs and things like that. However, when we look at Windows Autopilot or the modern Windows deployment, the new way, whenever the hardware is ordered, the hardware hash and details and numbers of that machine are pulled together onto your CSV, uploaded into Intune, and noted down on the customer's tenant for that user. In the background, Ingram will post that device straight to the user in your customer's tenant, and when they turn on that machine for the first time, without anybody having to touch the device, they will have their portal ready to open so they can start getting work done. So in terms of connecting to the internet, they just type in their password and username as they would have done on their old machine, and everything is ready to go. So it reduces all the additional postage costs, it reduces your admin time of your engineers, and it improves customer satisfaction. So I just wanted to kind of go through what that looks like on the next couple of slides of how Autopilot works in the background. So to get started with Autopilot, many of you may already know this, you need Intune to get started because you need to have the device details ready for that customer, for their end users, ready to deploy on the customer's tenant. So let's look at that now. So to get started, we first need to add the devices to Intune. Now, what you'll see further on in this presentation is the services that Ingram can do in order to provide the CSV file for a range of devices that you may place an order for. But for now, I'll just do this as if we were uploading it as a single device. So in the Intune portal or in the Microsoft Endpoint portal for the Admin Center, you click on Devices, and then Windows Enrollment, and then Devices, as you can see here in these 4 steps. Under the Devices section, you'll have an additional window that says Windows Autopilot Deployment Program, where you can then click Import and import the hardware hash of the device. So a hardware hash is essentially a bespoke serial, almost like a serial number, that recognizes that device so that Windows can recognize it. Almost like an IMEI number for a mobile phone, I guess, to make it in simpler terms. Next, you'll want to create a device group and put the Autopilot devices into the ones you've just loaded. So again, in the Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center, choose Groups, choose New Group, and then from the blade, you'll want to choose the group type as Security, and then you want to create a name. As an example, here you can see Autopilot Group. As a group description if you wanted to, and then you can give it a description. So again, if you wanted to have a group description as a department, as an example for a test phase or something like that, you can. And then for membership type, just either assigned. In the group lead, you can choose the members and add the Autopilot devices to that group. Autopilot devices that aren't yet enrolled are the devices where the name equals the serial number of the device, and then just choose Create. So the next step now is to create a device group. Now you must create a deployment profile so that you can configure the Autopilot devices. So again, in the Endpoint Management Center, choose Devices, Windows Enrollment, and then Deployment Profiles, and you want to create a profile. So on the basics page, for the name, if you want to enter the Autopilot profile, for the description, you can just enter your description as name. And then you want to convert all the targeted devices to Autopilot. Select Yes. This setting makes sure that all the devices in the list get registered with the Autopilot deployment service. Now this process can take around about 48 hours for the registration to be processed. So again, this is what can happen when the device is in transit. So yeah, that's what we can do there. Now from there, select Next. On the out-of-box experience page for deployment mode, you can choose user-driven, so that obviously when that person receives that device, they can turn on the device straight away from without having to go through all the Windows kind of setup and things like that. Devices with this profile associated with the users enrolling the device, their user credentials are required to enroll the device. So as soon as they turn on that device, or if anybody turns on the device, it will require that user's credentials for Azure Active Directory to join. So again, as you can see from the different settings on this page, if you can zoom in, you will need to ensure that it's selected as join to Azure Active Directory in the box, so that the machine knows in order for it to turn on correctly and function correctly, it must connect to the Azure Active Directory for the customer's tenant. From there, you want to configure the following options and leave all the others set to default, such as the end user license agreement. You can just hide that in the setup of the device. Privacy settings you can show if you wanted to, and user account type is standard. Because if the user was to set up a device for the first time, sometimes it would come up as administrator, which you don't want them to have, of course. But again, you don't want them to in the startup of the device for the first time, you don't want them to have to go through the whole Cortana speech thing and language setting and things, and you can set all that functionality up and to bypass a lot of it as well. So as you go through here, you can choose all these different settings and profiles, and then on the assignments page, choose selected groups, and then for to assign to. And then you can choose the Autopilot group that you've just created. And then you review all the content and choose create the profile. It's relatively straightforward, of course, describing it all here. But yeah, we'll move on to the next stage here. And guess what? The next stage is it. That's it. So you can do all that functionality of processing everything on Intune while that device is in transit to the customer. So in terms of that downtime, the wait time and the admin and all the customer moving that you would typically have to do, waiting for that device to be shipped from our warehouse to your office to then do all that, you can actually do it all through Intune, set up all the customer settings there and then while it's in transit to the end user. So enjoy a nice cup of Java. Now, I appreciate that I did cover that in just a very brief number of slides there. So what I'm going to do now is show you a short video of what Ingram can do as a service and how to remove all that kind of functionality away from the reseller. So if you're not confident in Intune, if you're not confident in Autopilot, obviously you would need a lot more training if you're brand new to this. This next video should hopefully alleviate all that pain and concern. So enjoy.
When employees unbox a new business device, they're excited about how it can help them improve their productivity. But the novelty soon wears off when hours have to be spent setting up accounts and installing applications, updates, and settings prior to using the device. Employees just want their new device to work straight out of the box. With the help of Windows Autopilot and Ingram Micro, you can make this process easy and get users up and running quicker than ever. Windows Autopilot is a cloud-based service for low to zero touch deployment, through which you can set up pre-configured software suites, updates, personal settings, security provisions, and much, much more. To take full advantage of the Autopilot experience, a new device must be registered using a serial number or using a collection of details specific to a device, called the hardware hash details. Ingram Micro can help you capture and upload these details to Autopilot using one of our bronze, silver, or gold Autopilot services. If a reseller partner or end user already has a process in place for registering devices, then use our bronze service, where Ingram Micro will capture details and email them onto a reseller partner or end user so they can register devices into Autopilot. Or to make the process even quicker and easier, use our silver service, where Ingram Micro can collect device details and upload straight into Autopilot on your behalf. Using our gold service, you can really have a great Autopilot experience by using the white glove service via Ingram Micro's Configuration Center, who will help pre-provision Autopilot devices before the end user gets them, so no waiting for installation or applications. When customers order their new Windows 10 device, the relevant setup is automatically applied to each device before it's dispatched. The result is when the user receives their device, all they have to do is connect to Wi-Fi and enter their credentials to get started in moments. This means you can cut out all the time and effort of remote support and setting up individual devices, so much so that the device never even passes through your hands on its way to the user. That's why, for IT professionals and users alike, Ingram Micro and Windows Autopilot deliver low to zero touch deployment with 100%.
So hopefully that video made it a bit more clear than the way I've described the way the Autopilot runs. And obviously that video goes through the Ingram Micro service, which Brian will talk about very shortly, and go through the pricing and the structure and things like that. But let's just talk about a couple of prerequisites if Autopilot is exciting for you. So in terms of the licensing side of things, from a modern workplace standpoint, there is some prerequisites. Obviously, I've said earlier that Engine is the prerequisite, which is absolutely correct. For an SMB customer, of course, not all the SKUs will include Engine. So obviously, I've just highlighted here in the boxes down here. These are the most common SKUs for an SMB to go under. So in terms of Business Standard, Premium, or even Office E3. Now, for Business Basic, Apps for Business and Business Standard, of course, and for the Office E3 and E5, you do not get Engine, of course. However, with Business Premium, you do get Engine as well as EMS. When we go to the N365 E3 and E5, again, you'll get Engine for those. So in terms of the bundled package with Engine, it would be the N365 Business Premium, N365 E3 and E5 SKUs. But again, you can add Engine as a standalone. But obviously, I would recommend that you would go from a Business Premium perspective for an SMB customer. Now, don't forget as well, if you do have organizations that are just slightly more than 300, but they don't want to be on an enterprise SKU, you can still sell them, up to 300 Business Premium, up to 300 Business Standard, and up to 300 Business Basic as an example, because the maximum SKU limit on each individual one is 300. So essentially, you could have 900 users on the SMB SKUs. But obviously, for those who want Engine and they don't get it with their subscription, again, you have to have Engine as a prerequisite. So I just wanted to quickly touch on this slide here, a bit of a comparison between some of the SKUs in terms of features and functionalities if you weren't already aware. So obviously, Business Premium is the kind of SMB hero SKU. I'm sure you've heard of Microsoft and everyone talking about it quite frequently recently. But obviously, Windows Autopilot comes with Business Premium, along with EM&S, Engine, of course, for your MDM and things. But there's some things that have recently, in terms of features, been updated, which you may or may not be aware of. So I just wanted to highlight those today as well. Azure Active Directory P1 is now available in Business Premium, which is a really good, unique selling point. You've obviously got the likes of conditional access, which is new to Business Premium in the last couple of years. And then we've also seen shared computer activation go on here. And this is a key one as well, because this is not commonly known from some conversations that I've personally been having. But with shared computer activation on Business Premium, you no longer need to have Office E3 or Pro Plus, as it was previously known as, to run it on a terminal server. You can actually run Business Premium on a terminal server now. So from an SMB customer's perspective, it obviously gives them a lot more savings in terms of having that all-in-one SKU that can cover all their business needs. Now, on top of that as well, Ingram Micro also gives 30 days free on net new seats of the likes of Business Premium, as an example. So if you've got any customers who are yet to adopt the cloud, or if you just want a new customer or doing a tender for a new customer, talk about Business Premium, and if they're net new to Ingram Micro, we can give you the first month free on that subscription. And if you'd like any details about how this offer works, please get in touch with our cloud team as well. My final slide here, just before I hand over to Brian Windsor here, is just talking about the kind of deployment scenario of how you can adopt your customer's infrastructure, especially with Windows Autopilot, of course, as well. Because we understand that having these conversations and explaining this to your customers, obviously they wouldn't be from a technical standpoint, but just understanding a really, really unique and clean form of showing them the transformation that their organization can have. So this is a bit of a slide that we've got from Microsoft, which kind of highlights to a really, really easy to flow kind of workflow of deployment. So you can see here on stage one, if the customer's net new or something like that, or if they're new to the cloud or something like that, you can do all the basics of setting up their Azure Active Directory and setting up MFA, email migration and so on and so forth. And you've got your own services and whatnot that you can add on there. Once that customer has adopted all these on their new subscription, if it was Business Premium as an example, then you would move into the next services, such as if they were doing the Windows 10 upgrade, if they required that, introducing Teams, as you can see here, device management policies with Intune and stuff, and even the Windows Autopilot. And one of the unique things about, obviously, setting up a tenant, obviously, for Office 365 is it does have a bit of a wizard on the Office tenant to help set up a kind of bespoke group policy for that customer's tenant. So in terms of when it comes to the device management policies, the Intune policies, and all the MFA and things like that, you can set them up as an organization-wide thing just from using Microsoft Secure Score. So if you're unfamiliar with Microsoft Secure Score, on the Office Admin Center, just go to Security, and it should be right there in front of you as an option to click. I would highly implore looking into that in a bit more detail, because the reports that it can generate off Secure Score really do highlight some really great graphs and charts of that tenancy to say, what are the risks, who are the risky users, what steps do they need to make sure to ensure that they remain secure as an organization. And then obviously you've got the likes of your additional services that you can support from this in terms of professional services and things like that. And then you can move on to stage 3 and adding additional value and going deeper into that security infrastructure, so such as compliance and GDPR consultancy and things like that, and going into more features such as sensitivity labels into documents and things like that, document tracking with Azure Information Protection and data loss prevention, and then activating some of the Windows ATP and things like that. So there's a whole stage of what we're seeing a lot more partners are doing, and giving customers that kind of we're not going to deploy everything all at once. We're not going to, do this in a different artwork or framework or whatever, but having like a quarter by quarter framework that the customer can understand and absorb quite quickly. So that's enough from me now. I'm going to hand over to Brian Windsor here, who is our guru on Autopilot at the minute. And he's going to talk you through some of the packages and some of the device service offerings that Ingram can offer. And if you do have any questions, we will answer them all at the end in our Q&A. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter, for that excellent overview of how to apply Autopilot. My name is Brian Windsor, Senior Business Manager for Microsoft Surface and HoloLens at Ingram Micro. Over the past 6 months, we've undertaken a series of projects to ensure we bring to you, our partner, services that allow you to reduce touch of devices and spend less time configuring for your customer. We are pleased to offer you Autopilot and to take these services on your behalf. Over the next few slides, I'm going to share more information on how we can support you, enable you with more of our services, so you can benefit from all that Ingram Micro is able to support you with via our configuration team based out of our main Crick warehouse. We've been really impressed by the adoption of Autopilot over the past few months, with partners utilising our services at Ingram Micro. We've been able to offer partners additional solutions, enabling you to deliver more services to your customers with zero-touch deployment, making it easy for all parties. To create our programs, we have taken a view of what was important to partners, reflecting that each partner's requirements are individual and how much engagement is needed is different. So we've built 3 services: Bronze, Silver, and Gold. With the Bronze package, we provide the basics of Autopilots by creating a CSV file from you, and we take the hardware hash from the equipment via our config team. With Silver, it's the same as the Bronze package, but we do the upload into Intune for you. Noting that for this, we need to request a partnership association with your customer's account. Gold is the same as the Silver, but we also provide any white gloving services also. And by this, I mean we can apply the settings into Intune and also apply any additional software that can't be uploaded via Intune also. For this, we also provide the updates to the devices, so it creates a true out-of-the-box experience. And for this, please engage with your account manager or talk to the config team so we can discuss any pricing requirements. So the next slide is going to take you on the journey of where Autopilot fits into the as-a-service model. Device as a Service has been at the forefront of how we have utilised our acquisitions over the past 5 years to draw together a solution that provides and helps you sustain long-term relationships with your partners, allowing you to resell the Ingram services as your own. To take you through the proposition swiftly and how we think about the journey, it's important to recognise that this is not a must-take-all solution, but you can take as much or as little as you want. The key takeaway should be that all the different focus areas and how we can help you. So to take you through the 6 silos or how we view the journey, it's about selecting the hardware to start off with, looking at whether it be a Surface, a Lenovo, Dell, HP, Asus or Fujitsu piece of hardware, looking at all the different options that are available on the Ingram Micro portfolio. So when you're purchasing a device, does the customer need additional monitors? Do they need any additional software? Do they need additional keyboards or mice? But again, as I say, this is where you can add anything that's on the Ingram Micro portfolio. And then utilizing the cloud services that we provide with your cloud account manager, bringing in the M365 Business Premium and those licenses. Looking at the services, and this is where the Autopilot really now starts to form part of the overall deployment. So if you've got a managed deployment or deployment that you need us to support you with, we can help with that and the staging. So also including any asset tagging, looking at adding any user guides in as part of that deployment. Imaging is also available, and where the product can't be uploaded via Intune. And also, engraving is an important service that we've been offering for a number of years now, and a number of customers are really starting to take that service up. Also working with our ITAD team. So if your customer's looking to upgrade to a new device, it's highly likely they've got an old one that they may wish to hand in, which it may have some value. So let us give you a quotation back on that. And then wrapping it all up into a leasing solution. When you're speaking to your account manager, please do look at the OPEX and the CAPEX solution, because that's a really great way of making sure that you're providing the right solution to your customer. We've been providing finance now for over 4 years. And in the last 2 years, we've set up our own Ingram Micro Financial Solutions division. And part of that team will also be on the Q&A session right at the very end with us as well. We hope this session has given you an insight into how we can support you further with Autopilot, irrespective of your preferred route. To ensure we support you swiftly, we have outlined on this slide a few key contact mail addresses to expedite any questions you may have, and these slides will be available shortly after the Q&A session. So if you're not a Microsoft Surface approved partner already, then please do mail us in the Surface team at surface@ingrammicro.com, and we will work with you to make sure that it becomes Surface approved. If you have any questions specifically detailing regarding Autopilot, the Ingram Micro UK configuration team is available to support you through their email address. And also please use your account manager to raise any questions and to also look at the pricing structure that we have available. And please stay up to date with updates on this and more following Ingram Micro UK on LinkedIn.
Hi everyone, so thanks for watching that webinar there. We're now going to do a short Q&A. Apologies, the recording didn't work there for the last slide there, but the brief last slide there was just our upcoming webinars. So if you want to check them out, they're all on our LinkedIn page. If you just follow Ingram Micro Cloud UK, you'll find that we post up on there on a daily basis all the different live events that we're doing. Yeah, we'll kick in straight away into the Q&A, and there's a couple of questions that we've got. So we'll dive straight in. The first one we've got here is, what are the costs at the bottom of the digital transformation slide? So these are not costs associated with Ingram, these are industry costs of, so on the digital transformation slide, it talks about deployment at $100 per user, Windows, $28 per month for the associated costs with delivering Business Premium, and security enablement at around $1,500 a day. These are European average costs of what some partners would charge for some of these services. So this is obviously this is no reflection on what you can charge. Obviously everyone has their different rates, but this is just what Microsoft has surveyed. So hopefully that answers your question. The next one is, can the ordering process be simplified to select Autopilot when checking out orders rather than liaising with an account manager, thinking of particularly small orders? Martin, that would be a good question for you. So can it be simplified to select Autopilot when checking out orders? That would be possible with it, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you could do it on the CSP website, but once the process is set up, then it's really just a matter of sending an email to the configuration team and it's as simple as that. Once we follow the process once, we can just be updated with any new and upcoming orders with an email, and just follow the process that we followed before.
Great. And whenever obviously Surface goes live next month on Cloud Marketplace, they just tick a box with the Surface machine and the license or whatever. Do they still have to email the config team, or is that automatic?
Brian, you might have some additional information on that.
So the idea is, live with Surface and you want Autopilot added as well, then that will be a process that we engage with you on. So the order will be captured with Autopilot. But the key thing is making sure we identify exactly what services that you require. So the key here is that, as I suggested during my part of the presentation, every single time that we're going to engage with a partner, it's additional service that we can obviously support you with. If it's purely Autopilot, there's obviously the bronze, silver, gold solution. But at the same time, if there's anything else that we can work with you on, and it could be just as simple as your account manager or one of the team speaking to you very quickly just to confirm that the level of service that you want, and also be whether there's anything else that we can do with you, whether that be through a telephone call or a very quick email. So we're just trying to make sure we're keeping the lines of communication open, to ensure that we're getting exactly what you want us to achieve.
Great. All right. Thanks, Brian. And of course, if you do have any further questions after this webinar, obviously you can email the config team. I'll spell it out now, just in case you didn't get a chance to get it on the previous slide there. So get your pens and papers ready if you have them. But it's imuk.configcenter@ingrammicro.com, and they're the team that deal with Autopilot deployments. All right. I've got another question here regarding the pricing. Can we go through the bronze, silver, and gold, and then just highlighting the savings versus a traditional deployment method, Brian? Brian, you there?
Sorry, I missed that last part of the question there. Sorry.
Yeah, so in terms of the pricing, can we just cover off exactly the pricing and typically what a reseller would typically pay for this type of thing if they were to do it themselves without Autopilot? So I was thinking regarding bronze, silver, and gold.
Yeah, perhaps if I can hand over to Martin for that one, just to go through it a little bit in the details. I do apologise there. Martin, swinging back to you.
Okay, then so we offer 3 main services at the moment, but it's not limited to. We've got the bronze service, which is £3, and for that we will collect the hardware hash details and then email them onto your customer. The silver is a £3.50, and we collect the hardware hash details and then we'll upload them to Intune on your customer's behalf. Or you can go for the gold service, which is a white glove service where we collect the hardware hash details, upload them to Intune, and we also run a configuration side of the unit. So your customer would have set up some settings on the Intune server, so maybe some apps or some customer settings. And what we can do in the config center is actually run those, pre-provision those devices before they actually get to the end user. So that way there's some configuration already sort of happening before the user gets it. The configuration can take a little bit of time, well, about 5 minutes. Sometimes they can take 20 minutes. It really all depends on how the customer has configured their Intune portal.
Great. Thanks, Martin.
That's all right. Yeah, I was just going to add that the savings on this in compared to sort of traditional imaging is quite a lot, actually. I mean, in the past you would have had to build a machine, build an image, get a customer to sign it off and check the applications. If it wasn't right, send the unit back, get it checked again. So the Autopilot Intune method is I think long term a lot slicker, quicker, cleaner way of going forward with imaging.
Yeah, definitely, and not to mention the postage cost savings as well. Like on my previous employer, whenever I was remote, they would always have to send DPD out to collect the device, to take it back to the IT hub. They would do all they need to do to fix the device or provision it, and then post it back out to me. And if I wasn't at home, then there's delay in receiving that device and things like that. Which leads me on to my next one. Oh, there's another question here, just to confirm the gold service price. Could you repeat that? It was between £6 and £8, Martin, wasn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, between £6 and £8, and that's where Ingram would do pretty much everything regarding the deployment.
The reason there's a flex between that price as well, between the 6 and the 8, is really dependent on how long the machines take to configure. If it's a real quick, easy job, then yeah, we'll go to the lower price. But if the machines are here and maybe a bit more interaction with us as well, because part of the white glove service is you can actually turn on and off certain features, so potentially there could be a bit of a manual process. I've heard as well sometimes the white glove service can take hours, but again it all depends on what's been set up on the Autopilot server and what applications have been downloaded, what updates have been selected. So again, it's a good one to go for. It just takes out that time taken for the end users, is the way I see it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And of course, like, the reseller can have their additional fees onto that as well from margin on these additional costs, because the savings for the customer is going to be quite large. Again, going back to the postage element of it, you could be charged anywhere between £5 and £20 per device shipped. In some scenarios, depending on the cost of the device and the insurance, for if it gets lost in the post, which can happen, of course.
And maybe follow up IT calls as well, because with this Autopilot method, I mean, it's like you said, it's as easy as a user putting in their username and password, and you won't need an IT guy to sort of tell them that. What we could do as part of the configuration is actually slip in a piece of paper that actually give the end user some additional instructions if needed. So, I mean, you can cut out IT calls or IT guys going to these places. It's
absolutely. And of course, it is very, very secure as well, because the customer can still log in with their their home Wi-Fi if they're working from home, and all they need to do is connect to the VPN as an example, or connect to your Active Directory to authenticate. So if they have MFA set up, that again makes logging into the device very secure for the first time. So if it is lost, which can sometimes happen, you can be rest assured that because that device has been configured for that user before shipment, it can only be unlocked. And again, because it's through Intune, you can wipe the device and whatnot and do all kinds of things with it. So that's really, really good.
Yes, that's
cool.
right. Yeah. And just to follow on that security side of things as well, I mean, in the past with traditional imaging, you may have had to include some administrative type passwords and usernames just to sort of check the image. But with the white glove service, you have none of that. So it's sort of, you have to have those IDs now to follow an installation of software and updates and apps.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got another question that's come through here, which is a really good one as well, actually. How long would it typically take from placing the Autopilot order with the device for it to be configured and the end user receiving that device? Now, typically, this would take around 10 days. From the reseller receiving the device from Ingram, them doing the custom image on the device, then shipping it to the customer, then the customer potentially even shipping it to their end user. How long would you say, Martin, it would typically take regarding this Autopilot service?
I would say from some end-to-end, say 4 to 5 days, and potentially it could be quicker. We have a standard ETA in the config center of 1 to 3 days. So it all depends on the beginning of the ordering process and maybe where it's been delivered. There are some sort of 48-hour areas that have to be delivered to, but I'd say typically sort of 4 to 5 days.
That's great. Thanks, Martin. That's almost half the time saved, of course, which is really, really good from deployment. Fantastic. Great. I think that's all of the questions so far, unless anyone's got any other questions. That's come through the chat, but I think that's it really. Again, that email address that I mentioned earlier, if you guys do have any questions for Martin and his team in the config center, that's imuk.configcenter@ingrammicro.com, and they can assist you. But just to kind of recap, what this whole webinar was all about is from next month, we're aiming to launch Surface on Cloud Marketplace alongside Cloud and CSP. So you'll be able to go on to Cloud Marketplace, order a range of Surface devices. I think it's all of them, Martin, isn't it?
Yes. Yep,
yeah, all the Surface. Yeah, all of them. Yeah, that's fantastic. Along with the Autopilot deployment, the subscription if it's in the user or something, yeah, it's coming next month. And then for additional devices and things like that, for like Lenovo, HP, Dell, and things like that. What's the details on that right now? Because obviously, if the partner's not selling Surface right now, but they're selling everything else, they can do that manually, can't they? Or
yes.
Your team can do that manually? Yeah. Can you describe a bit more into that?
So I would say either contact your sales manager and ask them for more details, or contact the configuration team with that email address. But we're doing it already, so we're already autopiloting HP, Dell, Lenovo units. So it's happening right now.
Fantastic. It's just not on Cloud Marketplace, of course, but it's still doable by just a simple email. Great. Actually, I did get one more question through here. Actually, a very prominent one, actually. Financing. So do you have to pay for the device in full, or can it be financed?
I can answer that one. So my name's Liam Doyle. I'm the Ingram Micro Financial Solutions Lead. It's quite a mouthful, so we call it IMFS. But we're offering device as a service and financial options for Surface devices and every other type of hardware. So what does make us unique is that we can access all of the vendor residual values to essentially subsidize the lease so that the rental repayments are less than the cash price. And of course, it gets that end user customer onto that all important refresh cycle and secures you a new opportunity. We're seeing a huge level of success with that in the UK, especially on Surface. And how it would work is we would arrange for the lease documentation to be signed, and we will give you a purchase order from the finance provider, the funder that sits behind this, that enables you to place the order with Ingram Micro. It is also possible to finance non-Ingram Micro distributed assets, so we give our partners with full flexibility. And then we collect rental repayments back from the customer, typically on a 3-year refresh cycle. But there are also options where the customer can finance it and own that equipment at the end of term. So we've got a couple of different options there.
That's great.
We'd be very happy to talk to you in further detail. Maybe I could share my details with you somehow in this chat. I'll just try and work out how to do that. And then, yeah, we'd be very happy to talk you through any financial options.
Great. And then just to confirm, if the customer was looking to do finance on a Surface when it launches on Cloud Marketplace next month, that's not through the Cloud Marketplace, of course, because if they are wanting finance on the Surface with Autopilot and things like that, that's still a manual process for our team to do. So it's still possible. It just wouldn't be automated. Correct?
Absolutely, that is correct.
Yeah, cool. Brilliant.
Sorry for the delay. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No worries. Brilliant. Well, I can't see any other questions, so I guess that's a wrap. But yeah, thank you very much for listening and watching this webinar. If you do have any other suggestions of any other webinars or content you want to see, or get some assistance in learning, or even an idea for your team to get some training, and let us know. On LinkedIn, you can follow myself or Brian or any of the rest of the team on LinkedIn and just drop us a message. Or just let your account manager know of some content you'd love to see from us and more training. So just let us know. But anyway, thank you very much for your time today, and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, Peter. All the best.
Bye.